Hello, and welcome to the Authority Podcast, where we talk about the tea in the writing industry. I am E, your host, an author, editor, and book publisher of over 16 years. I have done everything. Are you ready to spill the tea? Hello, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of Authority. We are talking about small talk for authors, and this conversation we are having right now is inspired by a friend of mine asking a question in a writing group, because small talk is kind of difficult, and networking in general is really hard, so I wanted to get into that this week. As we all well know, authors are not typically the most social of butterflies. We prefer to be left alone with our writing. Unfortunately, in order to make connections we need to progress our writing careers, networking is an absolute necessity. Learning how to network is its own art form, and if you haven't done much of it, it feels impossible and intimidating a lot of the time, as well as it can feel kind of pointless. Like, it feels fake and false on the surface since it's connecting with people for, like, a purpose. However, everybody's going into that space with the intention of making those connections. So it's not fake. The key is to make genuine and honest connections with people in order to support your career. And I'll get a little more into that later. How the hell do we accomplish these things? Okay, so first, consider who you're trying to connect with. For example, as an author, you might want to connect with agents and editors and publishers if you're looking to do traditional publishing. If you're looking for self-publishing, you'll benefit from connecting with authors in your genre and so on. Like even traditional published authors, you'll benefit from connecting with other authors. Some of the best connections you'll make are going to be people who are a few steps ahead of where you are in your journey. That means they are close enough to remember where you are and what it was like to be there, but they're far enough ahead that you can learn things from them and kind of continue progressing forward. And obviously, we want to connect with readers in our genre. Good quality networking isn't just making random connections with anybody and everybody, it's actually very curated and intentional. And now that you know who you're trying to connect to, our next question has to become, how the hell do I do that? So if you're at a physical event, striking up conversation organically is going to be one of the best ways, and there are two possible ways you can do this. First is you find somebody who's not otherwise occupied and introduce yourself. The other is find a group of people having a conversation that interests you and kind of listen in and join up. The small talk element of this is actually better phrased as how to get to know people, because that's what small talk really is. When in doubt, there are also a few topics you can almost always come back to if we're talking about readers and writers. People's pets, what genres they like to write or read, what their favorite books are, and why they like those books, who their favorite authors are. I'm sure you can kind of see a theme here. The key thing is to ask questions about things that would be shared interests. In addition to writing and editing things, you can talk about pretty neutral topics like the weather, sports teams, music, so on. They're pretty safe to discuss. With that said, what is the goal of small talk? Like, why do we do this at all? It feels worthless a lot of the time, but there is in fact a purpose to it. The topics you choose when engaging in small talk are mundane and focus on simple things that most people can relate to. They have very little contention around them too, so your goal here is to establish a rapport with the person through surface-level shared interest. Obviously, for writers and readers, favorite books and other such things are an easy point of connection, which is why I mentioned them earlier. Once you have established that you have commonalities with this person, say you share a favorite author or write in the same genre, you can delve a little deeper into the discussion since you know they engage with that topic, but your initial goal with small talk is just to find initial points of connection and allow for a more robust conversation that will naturally flow out of that later. For example, if I'm at a party with somebody and ask them what they do for work, and they tell me they're a bricklayer, I have very little in common with that. Now, I might ask more about what they do because I'm curious and like learning things, but I can't connect with bricklaying. But if that bricklayer has a cat, we can talk about cats and bond over that thing. They also might like to play video games or enjoy some of the same games I do. And even if we don't play the same games, we can talk about video games in general and find those common places. The whole point of these situations and your job in them is to find places where you and the other person can share something about one another and form an honest and genuine connection. You're going to hear that word a lot through this entire episode. What is the next step after you've created that initial connection? Well, then you get a little deeper. You can talk about topics where you have overlap and find more commonalities. Continue asking questions and show genuine interest in that person. This isn't some kind of cold, calculated thing. You have to be honest and important here. Fake connections and being fake yourself is pointless and it will bite you in the ass. Like, don't do it. Be honest in everything you do here. Initial connection, however, with small talk is the key. Once you've formed that initial connection, you can exchange business cards or follow and friend them on social media, however you choose to follow up, get their email. And once you've done that, do follow up with the person in a reasonable time frame. So if you're at a big conference, like I'm going to be at Author Nation coming up in a few weeks here, it's so close, guys. If you're at a mixer or a networking event there, follow up when you get home. You can follow up at the event, but you're both going to be really busy. But give it a chance and follow up when you get home. If you're at like a local mixer that's like one evening, send them a message the next day or a friend request or what have you. The follow-up is really important because it shows that you're intentionally connecting with them and that you remember them enough to want to follow up. This demonstrates that you valued the interaction, and again, this should be honest and genuine. If you don't want to stay connected to that person, don't. It's fine. Simple enough. Don't force things that don't feel right, or if you just didn't find common ground, that's okay. Let it go. Realizing a connection isn't going to be something you want to pursue is a reasonable thing. If this kind of sounds like dating, you're not wrong. In fact, you're exploring connections with other human beings to see if you want to engage in a deeper relationship. However, in this case, instead of it being romantic, you're looking at this from the perspective of your career. So developing these relationships with people is something that will make your author career or break it. As is often said in other spheres, and it's just as true in this one, it's not usually what you know, it's who you know. And that is absolutely true on every level. I've spent 16 years honing my skills as an editor professionally, but I don't really think that I broke into the business per se until I started talking to other editors and writers and getting to know people. That's how I've gotten my word of mouth around that. That's how people find me, is I get to know them. Networking cannot be underlined enough in regards to its importance. Final thoughts on this. Throughout this discussion, I have repeatedly emphasized the importance of honesty here. You are making real connections with actual human beings. If you approach this with a quantity over quality mindset, it's not going to work. You can prioritize certain individuals who can help you in your business, but again, this needs to be honest. The thing is, if you're at a networking event or in a place where networking is going on or small talk is happening, you're in a space where everybody's there to do the same thing. Everybody signed up for this. Networking can produce very real friendships. And if you're at a networking event where people are making those kinds of connections, the understanding is that also everybody's there to do that. That's why you're there. If you're there to network, you're there to network. And everyone's doing the same thing. You've agreed. Kind of thinking about it like if people are at a speed dating event, everybody's agreed to those terms and understands what the expectations are. You're there to maybe find and meet somebody for romantic things. If a married person is going to a speed dating event to make platonic friends, they're in the wrong room. This is a social transaction, and everybody involved has signed on to this in a consensual way. When you exchange business cards with somebody, it's innately understood you are making that connection, but this is a business conversation. Honesty, being forthright, and being curious and real will get you everywhere with this. So lean into those things. Be who you really are. You don't need to be fake or false or superficial with people to make those connections effectively. In fact, the exact opposite is the truth. This episode is too short to really dig into this topic in full, but if you're curious about networking and really want to get better at it, I cannot recommend the book Networking for Freelance Editors by Brittany Dowdle and Linda Ruggieri highly enough. It covers all of this in a really good way with an emphasis on being honest and ethical. And having met Brittany and networked with her at an event, she is absolutely delightful, and I believe her advice is top tier. So where you go from here, check out that book. I also strongly recommend the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It can feel a little manipulative and it could be used that way, but if you read it with the spirit in which it's written, which is how to genuinely make connections with people, it's a phenomenal book, and I cannot emphasize it strongly enough. That is it for this week's episode. I am so glad to have all of you here with me. If you have questions about this kind of stuff, please reach out to me. Leave me questions in the comments. I will answer you. Shoot me an email. Visit my website. You'll find that in the thing below or wherever you're listening to this. And as a reminder, I also offer professional editing services. I do typesetting, all kinds of stuff. I do book coaching. So wherever you are in your process, if you need help and feel like you're just in over your head, reach out to me and we will make this happen together. Also, like I mentioned, I will be at Author Nation coming up really soon here in November. I'm going to be there the entire week, and I will be there for Rave on the 14th to sign books. I am so excited about this, guys. It's going to be a great time. Rave has Kevin Smith speaking at it, so that's pretty cool. I'm going to be on a panel there talking about busting down stereotypes and how to avoid stereotypes in writing and what those stereotypes sometimes are and how they damage people. So I'm going to be on that panel during Rave. And of course, I've got my talk at Author Nation proper where I'm going to be talking about how to accommodate yourself as an author without any shame. I will be back here next week. I look forward to seeing you all again. Please take care of yourselves, and if you aren't going to be good, don't get caught.